Welcome back to Cottage Gardens. I'm Fionuala, and this is part 2 of our plant talk, our question and answers. The last video we put together ended up there being a lot more questions than we could fit into one video. So here we go with part 2. Let's get right into it.
So what else could you plant in the edible garden right now?
Yeah, we've had that a lot this week. A lot of people haven't ever grown a fall garden before. So I've been helping a lot of people with that type of advice, basically. For a fall garden in your edible garden, there are so many great things you can plant. You know, from seed, you would do carrots and beets, and you can do lettuce as well. All of those do great over the winter. Peas are another really good one. And as for transplants, you really want to get veggie starts of cauliflower and cabbage and any of the brassicas like broccoli, chard. Get them as transplants. Get them transplanted in now. They really, really do well with their roots in the nice, warm fall soil. But then they produce their best once the weather cools down. So fall is a fabulous time to plant any of those. When you're planting, of course, you know, your summer veggies are all finished. You've pulled them out. That soil where they were is pretty depleted. So you're going to want to add in compost. We have a great product called Soil Booster that I love. You know, this fertilizer, where is it? There's a really good fertilizer over here, the tomato and vegetable or Sure Start. That's a really good thing to add in to get that soil all replenished with the nutrients it needs to see your fall and winter garden through to springtime. Here's a couple of seeds that you can direct sow right now. Different varieties of beets and carrots and peas and radicchio. Oh my goodness, this is so good over the winter. And then from starts, what you're going to want to plant now are any of your brassicas. So broccoli or cauliflower, escarole. Oh, the broccoli is amazing right now. You're going to, a cabbage. I've got some very cool varieties of cabbage. The thing about brassicas, they like to be planted when the soil is still warm, but they do their best production of the sweetest broccoli and cauliflower once the weather gets really cold again. So that's what you're going to want to do in your vegetable garden right now. Get those brassicas in, get the beets in, get the Swiss chard in. Just picture all those really fabulous winter soups and stews you're going to make, and all these great ingredients you're going to put in. Peas, fava beans. You're going to have so much fun with it. And of course, we've got some lettuce that is especially resistant to cold or mildew. We've switched our mixes over, and there's some really great varieties that will see you all the way through winter. Onions, yep, onions, great time to plant onions. They can be the tiniest bit tricky, but now's the time to get them in, and then cross your fingers that the weather cooperates. If we get a heat wave and a cool down and a heat wave and a cool down, the poor onions get confused and they can bolt a little bit early. There's not a lot we can do about that except shelter them. If there is a heat wave, get some shade over them, give them some extra water.
Okay, so a lot of people have been asking this week what kind of things you can plant in the flower garden this time of year to get nice, beautiful blooms for into winter or through fall.
Yeah, that I've heard that a lot. That's a twofold question. It's a really great time to plant any kind of a perennial, pretty much any kind of a perennial this time of year anyway, for the same reasons that it's good to plant your deciduous fruit trees. Fall is a great time to get those roots established, get the plant established. It takes off, works great over next spring. It's going to take off. All this new growth and foliage is going to really impress you next spring. But for fall and winter color, the little annuals you're going to want to seed right now or transplant. You got pansies, you got violas, Iceland poppies. Dianthus is a little perennial that blooms all fall and winter long. Fabulous time to plant that. Calendula, bachelor's buttons. There's a lot of different things that you can do right now in your garden. either in a container or out in the landscape, that's going to give you winter color, fall and winter color, all the way through spring. And believe it or not, it's a really, really excellent time pretty soon to plant your sweet peas. We've started seeding them in the greenhouses already. 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have sweet peas for you to plant. And they do so well planted in the fall. They get themselves all nicely rooted in. The roots are developing. The tops don't do a lot, but once spring hits, once the days get a little longer and the days start to warm up in February, they take off. You're going to get your first blooms in about March or April. I wanted to show you just some of the flowers that you can plant right now that are going to give you colors for months, basically. The verbenas I have, they're just fabulous. They're going to keep blooming for you all the way till, it really gets super frosty. Lots of different perennials, lots of different things like calibrachoa, even the petunias behind me are going to give you color for months. And this particular variety actually keeps coming back in my garden too. So there's a lot of color available right this minute that is really going to be incredibly rewarding, even if you're planting it in September. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is what can you plant right now, annuals from seed or starts, young starts that are annuals, and sweet peas. Got to talk about sweet peas. It's coming up to the time that you're going to want to start seeding sweet peas. It does not feel at all instinctive to plant sweet peas right now, but believe me, it's another one of those things. They want to get their roots down when the weather's warm, and then they kind of sit there not doing an awful lot until February or so, like I said before. One thing you want to do is make sure you protect them from birds. A little bit of bird netting in the spot where you plant the sweet peas is a really, really great idea. So yeah, there's so much color available right now for you. Iceland poppies, violas, pansies, perfect time to plant them.
One more question that we've been getting a lot is that it's kind of hard to find an answer on a lot of things if they're perennial or annuals. So how do you know?
You just have to ask, and the more you garden, the more you work with the actual plants, the more you're going to learn about them. We do our best with the signage. It'll say if it's an annual or a perennial, but sometimes if we know a thing for way too long, we forget to put that on a sign. So we are so happy to answer that question. Just ask, basically. One of the nice things about annuals, including sweet peas, is even though it's an annual, meaning it just lives for the 1 year, quite often it's going to self-seed, which means drop its seeds right where it is, right where you'd planted it before, and it's going to sprout up a new little baby plant next spring at the appropriate time. So even though it's a plant like a sunflower, for example, that really only wants to bloom all spring and summer and fall, then dies when the first frost has happened, with any luck, it's dropped a bunch of seeds and it's going to sprout for you next spring.
I know there's a lot of things that they're perennial in some areas, but annuals in others, and we're sort of right on the cusp of that.
Exactly, and it all depends on our winter. Yeah, that's a question I actually had, I think, on Tuesday. It's perfect. This says it's an annual, but you're telling me it's a perennial. So true. I mean, a lot of things, we live in a fabulous climate, absolutely fabulous climate, possibly the best climate in the world. Zone 9B here in Petaluma, with that little bit of fog we get in. We are protected from the worst of the frost and the worst of the rain and the worst of the heat. So an awful lot of plants that might be annuals elsewhere are perennial around here. Between all of us here and my customers, we learn a ton of things about different plants and how they're going to behave. And I tell you, we've got a lot of expertise, yet we're still learning. So that to me is what a gardener is. We learn as we grow, and to me, it's a ton of fun. Now is the time to sow the seeds of sweet peas. And I've got them right here. And I don't know if you can see behind me that we sowed our first sweet peas only about a week ago. It's still just dirt, so we're not even going to show you. But yeah, September is the perfect time to plant sweet peas from seed. End of September, all the way through October and November, that's when you're going to plant the starts. But the great thing about sweet peas, they do fabulously all winter long. They don't care if it gets frosty. They're busy putting their roots down and thinking about growing next spring. So they're doing all the work, putting down their roots. And you're going to see some growth at the top. And then next February or so, when the weather starts warming up and the days get a little longer, they will start taking off and you're going to get the first blooms somewhere in March or April. Thank you so much for visiting again with us. My name is Fionuala. I'm here at Cottage Gardens of Petaluma most of the time, and I really appreciate you staying all the way through part 2. There was a lot of questions over the last week or two, so we had to split this video in two. And hopefully we got all of your questions answered. But if you have more, please get in touch. You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, on my website, cottagegardensofpet.com. You can email me anytime at info@cottagegardensofpet.com. But of course, the best thing to do is to come on in and visit. You will love it. Okay, bye-bye.